everybody, this is Joe and welcome to another episode of the Typewriter video series. This coming Sunday is April 22nd, and April 22nd in Albuquerque we're having a Type-Out, a typewriter gathering at Pennysmiths Paper at 1 p.m. And so I've been working today on deciding which typewriters I am going to be taking to the Type-Out. Stay tuned. Well, you know, I have 21 or so typewriters at home here, and I didn't want to take them all, certainly. And so I had to kind of decide which ones to bring based on several criteria. One of the criteria was that it had to perform pretty good. It had to be a good typer, so people would be inspired to use it at the Type-Out. The other item is it had to be representative of a certain class of typewriter. For instance, I don't have any standard full-size upright typewriters, but in terms of portable typewriters, larger portables and ultra portables, I wanted to represent both classes. And I also wanted to have a wide representation of different ages of the typewriters. So they date from 1930, the Underwood Portable, over here, to 1972, the Hermes 3000. A wide time span covered in the mid-20th century there by these typewriters. And so I went through all of them today and, you know, checked them out, checked them for functionality, did things like clean the platens and make sure they typed good and no major issues. Some of them I had to clean up the inside of the cases and the outside of the cases, and some of them I had to put a little wax on, like the Corona Standard. A nice shiny typewriter. I wanted to make sure it was up to snuff. Also, I had a little bit of a choice to make here between my SmithCorona Silent, which is kind of a two-tone brown and green from 1949, and it has kind of it's a funny imprint. It's a pica-sized typeface, but the style of the letters, or the characters, or at least the quality of the imprint is a little bit uneven in places. I didn't quite like the imprint as well. And so I chose instead the SmithCorona Silent Super from 1955. This is a kind of a gray and green typewriter. It has a elite size font, but it makes a much better imprint. But its platen was really hard and it was a lot louder sounding. But if you are aware that these 5 Series SmithCoronas, and most of the models, you can swap out the platens. You can take the platen out just in a couple seconds. So I swapped the platen between the SmithCorona Silent and the Silent Super, and I'll show you here in a minute. But so the two knobs between left and right are different colors. I could have swapped the knobs. I didn't want to confuse myself later on. I wanted to get the original platen back in the original machine. And so anyway, so swapping out the platen from the 1949 typewriter, putting it in the 1955 typewriter, it makes the Silent Super a quieter machine. Then my Hermes 3000s. I have 2 of these Hermes 3000s from the 1970s. The one that's in its original plastic body is the one I chose. I also have the Naked Writer, the bare chassis version that I put mounted on a wooden base. 2 different typefaces on those 2 typewriters though, and I was tempted to bring both of them, but I think I brought the Naked Writer last time in the last Type-Out, so I'm going to bring this other one here that was originally my grandson's. So that's pretty much it. And then I had to figure out, besides the Hermes Rocket, what other ultra portable to bring, and I had a choice between the Royal Mercury, Japanese silver Seiko made, versus the blue Brother Webster XL747 versus the beige Brother Charger 11 versus the Olympia SF portable. And testing all those out, it was obvious to me the Olympia SF had the best type feel, the nicest imprint, and I really liked the looks of it. A little bit more kind of rounded and kind of nice looking, classic look, rather than kind of the squarish, boxy looking Japanese portables. So I picked the SF over the other Japanese typewriters. But pretty much that's it. So let's go take each one of these into the studio here one at a time, open them up, and present them. This is the oldest machine in my collection, the Underwood Portable from 1930. I put a little bit of wax on the paint. It's Of course, old and dull. I put a little bit of alcohol on the platen, but it's pretty hard. But this machine works so well. It's a wonderful typing machine in spite of its rough appearance. Now, it is mounted currently in the bottom of the case, and the thing about this is there are two screws, one down here and one down here, that go through the two front feet, and you have to use a screwdriver to remove those screws in order to get the typewriter out of its base. So I'm going to probably just leave it in its base at the Type-Out and let people use it like this. So anyway, this is a great machine. I love it. This sits out on display in my patio room, and I just love this machine. What a great operating machine for being so rough in appearance. And of course the oldest machine, as I said, in my collection. So this is the second oldest machine in my collection. It's the Corona Standard from 1938. It's a beautiful, shiny typewriter. It's probably the prettiest typewriter of my entire collection, and of course with the age of it, it's just so unbelievably beautiful. The black finish does show dust pretty easily. So yeah, it's just like owning a piano. You're going to have to dust it once in a while. And it does remove very easily from the case just by pushing the button down here, lifting up the front, pulling it away from the rear. So I will be, of course, transporting it in the case, but I'll be taking it out of the base when I have it on display for use at the Type-Out. So this is a great typewriter. It types really good and looks beautiful. So people should enjoy this quite a bit. And it's very representative of this era from the late 30s, mid to late 30s SmithCoronas and Corona typewriters. All right, this is the third oldest typewriter in my collection. It is the Hermes Rocket. This is a 1953 model, so the earlier body style. And I've tried a couple of the later ones, and of course you can't judge an entire class of typewriter based on a sample size so small, but I really, at least from my experience, this earlier one I like the feel of it better. But anyways, so this is the smallest typewriter in my collection, and it's one of the best typewriters. It really does type really well. It has a Elite, or 12 roughly characters per inch typeface, but it's just wonderful typewriter, and sweet typing, works really well, has a great imprint, the letter alignment is really good. So this is a really representative typewriter of ultra portables, and hopefully people will have a lot of use out of this. The platen is somewhat hard, obviously, for considering the age, but anyway, it works pretty good and not too loud. Okay, so this is the SmithCorona Silent Super from 1955, the gray and green color scheme, which I really like better than that brownish color scheme of the older Silent that I have. This is a pretty good typing machine, but this typewriter was absolutely grungy. This was the filthiest typewriter I've ever bought, and I probably told the story numerous times. This machine works really well, but it took me a long time to fix it up, so it does. A lot of cleaning, a lot of working on intermittent problems with the escapement, etc. What I've done with this now, so this is an Elite font, 12 character per inch font, has nice alignment, but the platen was really super hard and really loud. And so the green knob is the native color. This brown knob is because I've swapped the platen out with the older Silent from 1949 in my collection, which had a brown knob. And I didn't want to, I could, loosen the set screw and take the knob off and put the green one back on, but I didn't want to get the platens reversed. I wanted to keep track of them. So anyway, there's a two-tone knob arrangement. People will probably be asking me, why is that? And that'll give me opportunity to demonstrate how easy it is to pull out the platens on these machines. So anyway, this is a really good sample of the Super 5 series SmithCoronas. Okay, the fifth oldest machine in my collection that I'm bringing to the Type-Out is the Remington Quietwriter, which you guys have seen a lot of recently on this channel. This is circa 1957, and it's a beautiful machine. It's a little bit heavier and taller than the SmithCorona Silent and Silent Super, as you might recall from the previous episode in this channel, but it's a great machine, beautiful machine, works great. I think it's very representative of medium-sized portables from this era, and I will be taking it out of its base when I get it set up at the Type-Out. And next on the list, the sixth oldest that I'm bringing from my collection is the beautiful SmithCorona Electric. The turquoise blue with the beautiful electric logo. I have a blue ribbon installed. It types really nice and really snappy. Of course, it's electric. It does have a manual carriage operation, but it's power shifting, and of course power on the keys, and so it's a very cool machine. I love the red switch when the power on switch is just beautiful. And anyways, it's just a great machine. For electric machine, I really like these electrified manuals. They're a little more dainty than the bigger electrics of later, and it has a newer style keyboard with the number 1 and exclamation mark, equals and plus, but what I really love about it is a lowercase apostrophe, which makes typing words with contractions or whatever a lot quicker than having to shift, for instance, the shifted 8, which is what older keyboards used. But anyway, great machine, and I think anybody who wants to be curious about typewriters needs to see one of these typewriters from the mid-50s. This is actually circa 1959, this typewriter is. So definitely, this is a keeper, and this is what I'm bringing to the Type-Out. Okay, the Olympia SF is the 7th oldest typewriter that I'm bringing to the Type-Out. So it's dated 1963. It has really nice, sharp typeface imprint. It has a really nice touch to it also, and I really love the looks, the kind of rounded corners a little bit, kind of just a really beautiful look to it, the beige and olive green kind of appearance, classic Olympia. And it's an older style keyboard. It does not have the number 1, of course. It has the apostrophe over the 8, shifted 8. Great typewriter. Probably one of the best. I think this and the Hermes Rocket, the early 1953 Hermes Rocket, there are 2 of the best ultra portables in my collection. So people deserve to try typing on this. This is a really great machine, and the platen is actually surprisingly in really good shape. It really does feel nice and rubbery. So this machine is a little bit not as common in my parts as other kinds of typewriters. This is a Facet 1620 made in Sweden. This is a really good typewriter. It's amazing how good it is, and that these are not known about any more than they are. I think in Europe they probably know about them a lot more. It has a super smooth carriage because of the design of the carriage bearings. It's a circular tube that the carriage bearings roll in, and so it's just really nice, big, long knobs, modern looking knobs, very modern 70s look. This is actually circa 1969 according to the typewriter database. A modern keyboard, number 1, exclamation mark, plus and equals, but you do still have the apostrophe as a shifted 8. But anyways, it's a really nice feeling machine, nice and snappy, and I have a blue ribbon put into this one as well, so it makes a nice blue imprint. But a really great machine, underrepresented, I think. Probably they didn't make as many of these, I suppose, as SmithCoronas and things like that, but there's a really good machines. I really love it. Cast aluminum body panels, so pretty darn sturdy. And last but certainly not least on the list is this 1972 Hermes 3000 in the two-tone kind of beige and light blue. This machine types wonderfully. It's a great typing machine, and I have the other machine of this same vintage that is the Naked typewriter. Both machines have different typefaces. It's a sans serif font. There is one modification I did to this. There's 2 little rubber feet underneath the front. Those were add-ons because I had to put these little green metal brackets and bolts to hold the body shell in place. The previous repair shop had actually epoxied or glued the upper and the lower body shell together because they broke the plastic clips when they were servicing it, and they didn't want the thing rattling for the customer, so they glued it in place. So when I got it, I had to cut it with a knife, and then of course it was all loose, so I drilled a hole in the bottom panel of the typewriter, put on this rubber foot, a bolt, some rubber padding underneath the green bracket, and those 2 green brackets hold the front of the body panel in place. So just my little modification to it. But anyway, this is a really great typewriter, Hermes 3000s. This is the boxy 1970s version, but mechanically they're very, very similar to the older ones. They work wonderfully well. They just have a wonderful feel to them, and they're great machines. They're one of the best machines ever made. If you only needed one typewriter, this would be one of the ones to consider for sure. So the newest typewriter in my collection that I'm bringing to the Type-Out next Sunday, April 22nd. So no, this is not a typewriter. This is another office equipment, you might say, from the early 20th century. This dates to around the World War I, 1914, 1915 time frame. This is a Burroughs Comptometer, and the reason why I'm taking it is there was another one of the local Albuquerque typospherians that's going to be bringing some other old office supply equipment to the Type-Out, and I figured, oh, that would be kind of cool. So it's Burroughs. It says on the back here, there's the patent information and the logo. So Comptometer versus adding machine, what's the difference? Well, I've covered this before in a previous video when I first got this, but basically with a Comptometer, you can enter digits simultaneously in different place values. You can't even do this with a modern computer, calculator, or cell phone calculator or anything like that. So you can enter all these digits simultaneously. See that? And as it adds it up on the bottom, and then to clear the number, you simply pull the handle and release it. It has a complicated system of planetary gears for each one of the place values. And that's the reason why you can do multiple numbers simultaneously, because you have carryovers that can happen simultaneously. The mechanism does multiple carryovers if they're needed. So here's a little fun thing I like to do for people to show this. You put all 9s in the display, and then you hit the number 1, and it carries over to 00001. So that's pretty cool. Burroughs Comptometer, you have little place value indicator marks that you can move, and so it's a fairly big calculating device for your desk. It does take up quite a bit of room on my desk. I thought it was worthwhile taken to the Type-Out, and it's roughly 12 inches by 12 inches by 8 inches, so I had to find a box that would hold it snugly, securely. The smallest one I found was actually pretty good. It's this Ziploc brand, and what I liked about it is it has this foam gasket along the lid, so it seals up and keeps dust from getting in it. So if I want to store this Comptometer some location other than my office, I'll probably wrap it in a plastic bag and then put it in that box. I have foam padding in the box, and that's a good way of keeping it secure. But anyways, the Burroughs Comptometer from the World War I era, and works beautifully, and I thought it would be worth showing off. Well, finally, I have one more machine to show you, and I wasn't going to be taking this to the Type-Out because it's not really very representative of the better machines made in the 20th century. This is a SmithCorona Cougar, and this was made in England, and I don't have an exact date on it. It's a 6Y series machine. It's a really shoddily built machine. I've covered this before in the past when I first got this, but it's made in England, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it to the Type-Out, where I'm going to have a little drawing to give it away. It's interesting, but it's very small. As you can see, it has the clamshell lid that makes it very handy to carry around. It's a nice color, but it is not a very great typewriter. I would choose the Hermes. I would choose any of the other ultra portables in my collection before this. But for someone that wants to get into typewriters for the first time, maybe for a kid or whatever, I think it's a pretty good machine to start off with that might get your interest piqued. And I still say it's a better machine. Regardless of how bad it is now, it's still better than those cheap little manual typewriters that were recently sold at the Michael's craft stores. You guys might have heard about that. Anyways, this is still a better machine than those, even though this is not very good. But basically, the bottom of the machine is a plastic base, and all the sub-assemblies are screwed onto that plastic base. It's just not a great mechanically built machine. The metal parts are really super thin and all that. Anyways, so I hope you guys, if you're in the Albuquerque area this coming Sunday, April 22nd, Pennysmiths Paper on Rio Grande Boulevard, 1 p.m. Hope to see you there. And until next time, you guys have yourselves a great day.